Welcome everyone to the Global Education Colloquium at Drexel University. I'm very excited to see a wonderful crowd from around the world joining us today for this presentation called Bridging Practice and Academia in Comparative and International Education Research in Cambodia. My name is Christy Kelly and I'm a faculty member here at Drexel and very excited to be introducing our speakers today. We're excited because Kelly Grace is a visiting scholar here at Drexel University, and she has kindly offered to talk about her research and her very interesting collaborations over many, many years with her colleagues in Cambodia. Dr. Kelly Grace is a research consultant focusing on gender in comparative and international education. She holds a PhD from Lehigh University and is a visiting scholar here at Drexel University in the School of Education. Her primary research interest examines barriers related to gender in early childhood education and primary school programs, and she works broadly in the area of gender in education programs in K through 12 and university settings. Her contextual area of expertise is in the Cambodian education system, with a particular interest in Chabab Sarai, or rules for women. Dr. Grace also supports the development of monitoring and evaluation systems for education programs, specializes in program data management and analysis, and develops and implements trainings in both gender and monitoring and evaluation in education settings. She is joined today by her colleagues, Channa, Yong, and Salav. Channa is currently working at Volunteer Services Organization in Cambodia. She was previously the Gender Equity Program Manager for Caring for Cambodia. She holds a BA in English Literacy and an MBA from Build Bright University in Siem Reap, Cambodia. She worked on gender equity in schools and community to provide awareness, conduct community dialogue, home visits, counseling, and to update curriculum. She also works on monitoring and evaluation frameworks, translation, helping students find jobs, counseling for students in family situations, fighting trafficking programs, and conducts research related to girls' early marriage and pregnancy. We're really excited to have you here, Channa. Also, let me introduce Salav. She graduated from the Royal University of Phnom Penh, Cambodia, majoring in psychology. She received a fellowship award to study in the US for 1 year at Agnes Scott College in Atlanta in 2019. She currently is a teaching fellow at Teach for Cambodia, where she teaches moral civic education to public high school students with institutions that partner with Teach for Cambodia. She is pursuing her graduate degree in education at the Royal University of Phnom Penh. She is passionate about women's education and providing a safe environment for young people to be vulnerable and grow up accepting themselves of who they are. If this is your first time joining us at the Colloquium today, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat box. You can submit comments there as well as questions. We'll have plenty of time at the end of the presentation to engage our speakers in more informal dialogue. Thank you, and I will turn it over to Kelly, Salav, and Channa.
All right, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me well? I hope my microphone is working pretty good. So again, hello everyone, and welcome to the Colloquium or the Global Education Colloquium. We are really excited to be sharing and presenting you about our experiences conducting research in education in Cambodia, and our the reason that we are excited because we have spent for the last couple months working on this virtually from different time zones. So we just can't wait to get this done. So yeah, the presentation today, we are going to talk about, of course, the experience, our researching experience, but the title of the presentation is Bridging Practice and Academia in Comparative and International Education Research in Cambodia. Before I move on, I just would like to thank you to some of my Cambodian friends and American friends for joining tuning in today. And actually, it's really late in Cambodia right now. So thank you so much for your interest in this talk. So moving forward, actually, there are 4 people who are working on this process. But unfortunately, there are only 3 of us who are going to be presenting tonight. There are Dr. Kelly Grace, myself, Salav, and Bong Channa Yong. Give me a second. I have everybody all my screen, so I cannot see the presentation. So I was like, where's the presentation? Sorry. Next slide, please. Okay, so we would like to introduce ourselves a little bit. So a bit more about me. I am a first generation to graduate from college. So under the support of Habsburg Foundation, which is a female dormitory in Phnom Penh, and also Women Leadership Center, I got a scholarship to stay in the dorm for free, as well as the scholarship from the Royal University of Phnom Penh to study in psychology. So in 2015, I moved to the city alone, being supported by the Habsburg. So I graduated in 2019. And then I got the fellowship award from the foundations to study in the US for 1 year at Agnes Scott College in Georgia. And I enjoy myself a lot there. And I learned so much about the American education systems, as well as learn more about the American culture, as well as, you know, like get to experience the life of the Americans. So I came back in June, last June. So since then, I've been working for Teach for Cambodia as a secondary schooler teacher, and I am teaching Khmer, English, and civic, moral civic. So yeah, as Christy mentioned in my bio earlier, that I will be I will be pursuing my master's degree in education starting next year. So that's a lot of introduction of myself. Hopefully it's not too boring. So let me invite Bong Channa to introduce herself.
Yeah, good evening and also good night from Cambodia. I'm Channa. Yes, I've been to work with Caring for Cambodia in Cambodia as a program equity manager, but right now I moved to the other organization at VSO. And nice to see you all and welcome. Before I came to work with Caring and Cambodia and VSO, I also work with my other one NGO that they are working with youth and gender equity or domestic violence, that they are working in the school and in the community, and also attend youth exchange program between other Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, you are the last. Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Channa. I'm Kelly Grace, and like Christy said, I'm a visiting scholar at Drexel University, and I'm an independent consultant and researcher. And I have a PhD in Comparative and International Education from Lehigh University, and I currently live in Saudi Arabia. And so we'll talk a little bit about, or I'll talk a little bit about our relationship, how we met, and some more about our work in a moment. But I did want to say that we had another colleague in Phnom Penh who gave a lot of input into this reflection process, and we had a lot of conversation with him regarding what this process looked like. And so I wanted to give a special thank you to him for providing us with his input and his reflection. Next slide. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we met. We started as an NGO university partnership, And so Lehigh University was working with Caring for Cambodia, and every semester we would take students to Caring for Cambodia, which is an NGO working in educational programming. And we would do research and evaluation with those students, and myself being a student. And so that's really how we met, with Channa as a gender equity manager. And then our colleague in Phnom Penh was also a gender equity manager, and Salav was a student at the school. And so it was really a cool process over the last few weeks, because Salav was actually a participant in a lot of that research, whereas Channa and our friend in Phnom Penh and I, we were the ones kind of conducting the research. And so our relationship has changed over the years. And so Salav has now become researcher along with all of us. And so the Lehigh Caring for Cambodia partnership dissolved, and we continue to work as within consulting projects. So I was working with different organizations, and Salav and our friend in Phnom Penh would work with me in different ways with those consulting partnerships. And then ultimately what happened is we ended up in kind of an independent research partnership, all of us together. And so that's developed in a really interesting way, because Salav and I have done projects together, Channa and I have done projects together. It's been, you know, a long process. It's gone on about 6 years, I guess, and we've changed roles, done different things, and it's been a really interesting way to see how it's developed over the last 6 years. So next slide, please. So these are some of the projects that we've worked on, and a lot of the projects came from an academic perspective. So we were coming from Lehigh University and going into schools at Caring for Cambodia and doing evaluations and research projects. So a lot of these come from an academic perspective, with the attempt or the hope that we would be able to impact programming and education for students who were in Caring for Cambodia schools. And so one of our projects, so the female graduate post-secondary transitions, that's where Salav was actually a participant. And then Channa and I have worked on gender equity monitoring and evaluation. And then the feminist participatory action research is an interesting one, because Salav became the researcher in that project. And so that was something that was not necessarily coming straight from academia, from a university setting into a practical setting, but we both collaborated to create a project that was both participatory, because Salav was running a program outside of Phnom Penh, and but also academic in nature, in that we submitted it to an academic journal, and we were really working from an academic perspective as well. And then we've worked on Chabab Sarai surveys. We've all been working on data analysis and things of that nature. So we've worked together in a lot of different ways over the last 6 years. Next slide. Can you go back? Sorry, the slide before. Yeah, Channa, that's for.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. It's my slide. Yeah, thank you, Kelly. As what Kelly present and show you about what we are doing together, or collaboration about M&Es on gender equity program. Actually, it is very important for me that I never have attended before. I don't know how to do M&E, and it is hard for me to develop and to make it to develop about my project. And I also learned from Kelly how to do it. And even though I don't know how to develop like template, and I don't know how to write a report, even though that I collect the information from the school or from the community. And after I attend the training with Kelly, I also apply to my staff, to my stakeholder to do together, even though we are not clear, but we try to do it to evaluate over the project in implement this implementing or as the project implements to know about outcome, impact, input, and challenge or solution to update our project in which quarter to be better. Yes, and I would like to move to about the gender education in Cambodia, even though you see in Cambodia a little bit changing about gender between in education in Cambodia between boy and girl, but it still has discrimination between boy and girl in community or in the school, like decision making or like education, like in participate in a policy, or there are still discrimination, like the girl doesn't like have ability to become a leader or something like that. Yes, in the community in Cambodia, in the school, and some of the sector they still like I can say like discrimination, like even though you are a smart girl or you are strong, but they still have a gap between boy and girls to give you is still lower than boys. And if we are talking about domestic violence or sexual trafficking, is still have in Cambodia, because some of girl or some of boy, they still like lack confidence to tell other people, to talk about their issues, about family economic, about their study, about their personal issues that they met in their family or in their
I don't know, did we lose? Yeah.
I think her internet might be stuck. So Salav was going to tell us a little bit about her process of going to Phnom Penh, because she has a fascinating story and a really good illustration of some of the barriers that girls and women face in Cambodia.
Yes, as Channa mentioned earlier about the barrier between genders, boys and girls, regarding opportunities to go to school.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, my internet have problem connecting. Sorry, and I would like to continue. And their parents still think like the girls still cannot go to school and cannot find a good job to do, and cannot have a family like the boy or something like that. Yeah, this is the reason that some of family they still has the mindset like that for the girls. And if we are talking to the social or to the government or to their environment in their community, they still have like not give a value to the girl as usually that the government and other NGO needs and want to have gender equity in education in Cambodia. And the benefit, what I see, the result, or what I met directly with my project implementing with Caring for Cambodia, if all those challenges still have with the girl and boy in gender in education, but a lot of many people, parents, that they are change their mindset. They give the value to their children about their education, and some of them they said that it is very good that if they know about the value of education, and if they have attend to the school, make them to avoid from the domestic violence, make them to avoid the sexual trafficking, make them to avoid a migration or something like that. Yes, and the community always increase to promote the gender of education, gender equity to the community through commune chiefs through network in the commune or other NGOs to work in the community to make them to understand about gender between boy and girl, and between their community to should be provide value to each other in education or in other sector. And how about we can help them in that issues if they meet as my idea, or I think that I thought that the government and other NGOs could be increased to promote about the gender to other rural areas, to a remote area that away from the city, to make them to understand much more about the gender in education, and should be held like training to the community or to the school, to make them, especially with their parent or with the teacher or school director, to let them know about the importance of gender in education. If they are understanding, they can apply to their community or to their children or to their student, yes, to make her confident to avoid the issues that happen with them. And we also have like home visit, yeah, like home visit we made for the student that who has issues, like some of students, they are away from home and they haven't transportation to school, like someone they come to school like by walking like 5 kilometers from school or something like that, distance from their house. And someone they came with their friend. This is the problem that made them miss from the school and can drop out from the school, as I met directly with them. And some of them, they are very like, how can I say, it's like poor, or they nothing ability to the school, is like close a book or something like that. And we also like counseling with their student that they have a problem, or with the teacher, what kind of the solution that we can help all those students that they have problem, or they don't have confidence to talk to the school or to the teacher or to the other people or to their friend when they meet the problem. Yes. And we also like community dialogue that we can apply to their parents to promote the gender in education. Yes, thank you. That's it. Let's move to the other slide. Yes, thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you, Bong Channa. Before be sharing my experiences, I just want a little bit that personal journey. So when she talked about the gender issues and gender inequality in Cambodia, I can relate to that a lot. And I know that my friend Sony, who is on the call as well, is that it's not only my issues, but it's Cambodian female student issues, where we find it hard to go to school because of the stereotype and the close-minded mindset that of the parents, as Bong Channa has mentioned. So for me, myself, it was really challenging, like growing up in a small village and being the first person in my family tree to go to school, and in a conservative community. It was just so hard to get encouragement from people around me to encourage me to go to school. So, but what kept me going was meeting my teachers. So they were my role models, and I really looked up to them, and they showed me the way, and they showed me that education is very important. It's the only key that we can help to eliminate poverty as well as improve improve and empower women's rights and women in the school. So yeah, it's really hard to find role models in a community. So for me, I felt like it was not the life that I want. When I see the patterns of the people in the community where their parents force them to get married or force them to quit school. And then when they got married, they tend to have kids, and those kids were not encouraged to go to school as well. So I see the pattern, and I thought to myself that it's not the life that I want, and it's not something that I want to see in my community anymore. And I wanted to be a role model for them, and I wanted to be someone who just like my teachers who showed me the way. So that's why my experience inspire me, supports my students and help them as much as I can. And also, I just want to say something related to education in Cambodia. So big picture wise, it's really, I can say it's really vague because the education system has a lot to improve. And there is called an outside system curriculum where there's a lot of NGOs like Caring for Cambodia and many others NGOs that are working like Teach for Cambodia to help support, build in, strengthen the system. So big picture wise, the system is still weak, and there's a lot of like outsiders and supporters who are working toward to improve the education system. And related to gender opportunities in school, it's really hard. That's why some NGO or foundation like Devised exist, because in the community, people do not believe in education at all, and especially the parents don't believe sending or investing their daughters in education. So yeah, that's a little bit of me and the education whilst in Cambodia. So now let's move back to the researching experiences. So for me personally, I learned a lot from the process itself. As a Cambodian female university student, or Cambodian university as a whole, it's really hard and limited to get researching experience. So the process with Kelly and other partners exposed myself to learn different research methods such as quantitative method is really popular, where people enjoy calculating and showing data, statistics and percentage, which is great. But for people like me who like to listen, who like to really understand the root cause and what's behind the scene, prefer the qualitative method better, because the method itself allows us to really deep into the issue, like the root cause of the issue, not depending too much on the numbers. So I learned that method. I remember Kelly taught me how to analyze words, and I was like, what is this? Is it a way we analyze words? And we just like highlight and color code it and stuff like that. It was weird at first, but it's worth learning and interesting at the end of the day. So yeah, and actually I ended up adopting the method to do my conduction thesis, and it was rare to do a qualitative research method. And the second thing that I really learned is collaboration. Everybody knows that collaboration is the key to success. It's the key to, enjoy working as a team. But, working with people from different backgrounds, especially a foreigner, an American, a white American woman. And I found it really challenging and hard to express myself, to communicate. As Cambodian, we tend to communicate indirectly. So I would say yes, but it doesn't mean that my heart is a yes. So I expect you to know that it's a no. So during the process, it was, like a little bit of cultural confusions that I later learned that it's important in collaboration as well as working as a team, that I need to know the differences and accept the difference, and also like be brave to say what is not right. So yeah, from the experience, I learned to collaborate better, especially with foreigners. So it's really benefit me nowadays when I go out and talk to people and work with other people. So it just have a better communication skill. So yeah, as I mentioned, during the whole process of confusing and getting lost and sometimes getting hurt personally because of a certain word that we use that we are not supposed to get personal, I learned to speak up. I learned to say, hey, Kelly, that's not right. Let's change it. And also because in our growing up in a Cambodian society, we're not encouraged to speak up. We're not encouraged to say what in your mind. So I was really afraid to actually say what I want and say this is wrong. But Kelly, my working partner, actually encouraged me a lot, and she asked me a lot of questions like, hey, what do you think? Do you agree with this? Do you disagree? Just say your opinions. So when I voiced myself, she was interested in what I was saying. So I started to feel self-worth, that my opinions worth sharing and worth speaking up. So then I started to build up confidence and confronting some of the issues that I should, that is not right. And I think it should be in the other way around. Along with the benefit, of course, there's the challenges. As I mentioned earlier, that communication was one of the main issues related to indirect and direct communication. It was just challenging. Yeah, and also, as I mentioned, that in Cambodian university, researching opportunities and exposure is really limited. So I was pretty nervous to the research. I was really new to everything. So sometimes I was like, Salav, do you know what you're doing? Like, what is going on? Do you understand what you are researching on? So there was a lot of confused moments and a lot of aha moment as well, where I forget, sometimes when you go through the whole process, you understand the process, but then at some point you forget what you're doing. So, and then when you go back and talk to people, and especially your partners, and you're like, that is it. So yeah. And also English, this one is really resonates with me a lot, because there's a lot of differences in Khmer language and in English. So I needed to make sure that I was representing my respondents' voice. I needed to make sure that I was translating their voices, and it was really hard sometimes to actually to work on that, the differences in language. So it was a main challenge as well. And last but not least, the lessons that I learned throughout the process. Congratulations, I learned how to communicate better. I know how to be direct sometimes with the Americans, and I know how to be indirect with the Cambodians. So I can be two ways. And I learned to listen. In the research, I mean, listening is important in general, but in research, you really need to listen to your respondents, to your research partners, to your NGOs, and all the stakeholders that you are working with, to really know and understand what they want, what they mean, especially the indirect communication, so that you don't get things wrong. So the research process gave me an opportunity to be where I had to listen a lot, and also ask questions, ask for help, ask for clarification, ask for advice. And it's an important skill. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that growing up in a Cambodian society, we are not encouraged to speak up, to ask a lot of questions. Otherwise, you will be viewed as a bad girl, as it's said in Babsray that Kelly has been also working on. Yeah, also I learned to plan. It's so important to plan in the research, even the planning is not working sometimes due to a lot of factors that Kelly might talk later. But planning is, of course, important. And again, I learned how to plan better. And last but not least, I learned that to get what we want is to work hard. And I know what it means to the Americans work hard is, because you are such a very fast-paced and productivity-oriented. So I'm sure you know what I mean. So this is all for me, my benefits, my challenges, and the lessons that I learned from the research process. So I think Bong Channa gonna talk first. Thank you.
And next slide, please. I think it's my slide. So yeah, so I'm going to just briefly talk about some of the things that went on with me as an academic researcher. And I did a lot of this work when I was a graduate student. And so I came in with a lot of biases that I didn't even know I had. I was an educator for 12 years and thought I was doing amazing things in the world of education. And so, you know, I didn't even know I had these biases. And I really went into my work in Cambodia with a deficit model thinking that there was something wrong and I was going to fix it. And I was going to go in as a researcher and I was going to do these things and I could help. And so, you know, those were really challenging. I put that it's been rewardingly painful, because breaking those things down and admitting that you've been moving in the world for however many years with these biases, with this understanding that, you know, that other countries, other education systems are lacking, it's challenging. And so my work with all of with Channa and Salav and our colleague in Phnom Penh, it was really interesting and challenging to break those biases down and really start to change the deficit model thinking that I started with. And it took, frankly, years for me to understand it and start to really pull it apart. And I'm still doing it. It's an ongoing process. And so another thing that has been really challenging is academic timeframes. So the academic world works in semesters or quarters. When we were doing projects with CFC, there was a semester to get a project done. And it was very much, while we were trying to work on doing something that was impactful, it was still a new set of students every semester, a set time frame that was on an academic schedule, and the schedule in Cambodia might not fit. Schedules changed. At one point, they closed schools early and we didn't have any students. Like, these things came up. And so the academic timeframes kind of pushed me, but also pushed those at CFC. And it pushed in a negative kind of way, right? There was this forced, got to get it done, got to get it done. And also, I think that links to also publishing system. You know, I shake my fist all the time about the publishing system, because the work that I do, I want it to be useful. But the publications that are useful in academia, they're locked behind well, most of the people that I want reading my work can't access them. And also because they're so inaccessible and the process is so slow in getting out publications that it becomes irrelevant and basically kind of unimportant in the practical world. And so we were working with these academic timeframes and academic publishing desires on our end, but really whether or not that was useful. And then because I was a graduate student, I also didn't have research skills. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing my best, and it took many years to start to develop those skills. And so that's kind of a benefit and a challenge in that it was an intense capacity building, the ability to go in and have these projects and just really learn about research. And so along the way, what I realized is that it's not just, it's mutual capacity building, right? It's capacity building on both ends, on the academic end and the practical end. And I think sometimes that mutual capacity building gets lost. And so it's a solution, perhaps, a lesson learned, perhaps, that the mutual capacity building has to happen for these collaborations to be successful and to be able to build those long-term relationships. And so the long-term relationships come from not just semester by semester, not just an academic doing the research, but by listening, building long-term relationships, expanding these projects over time and coming back. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So ultimately, I felt like what I'm doing 6 years later is a feminist, conscientious, imperfect implementation of research. Salav and I were talking, and I still make mistakes. I try, but I still cross those cultural boundaries. I still, my American pushiness a little bit comes out. And so, but we're trying. So next slide, please. This is Channa's part.
Hi. Thank you, Kelly. Yes. Yeah, this is what I happy to learn to do the M&E with Kelly since I
Looks like we have a slight internet delay, so we'll just wait a minute.
Yeah, sorry, we have internet connection, and I also understand the way how to collect the information from our group category over the project that, and I also know about the period of the project that we should to do the M&E and why we do M&E in the project for boards. It is very important for me, even though I cannot understand much about that, but at least I can lead my staff and I can share to the other project to know about what is M&E and how to do in the projects. Yeah, and I also work with her how to improve project management. That before I just working in the project, I don't know how to collect the information. I don't know how to update or improve the project to be well, and I don't know how to find or analyze the data collection, and I also know about it and try to do with her, and at least I can manage my project. I can see result in the project, I can see the challenge or solution that we can upgrade our project in each of the step. Yes, and the challenges is like I am not expertise as M&Es. Yes, I still feeling like, yeah, I feeling like not understanding, not clear, but I just follow about author interaction or template. Yes, I really want to be good in M&E, but I don't know how long that I can learn and how long that I can spend much time to understand, because I think that is the heart of the topic that we need to be the expert in that M&E's research. And I also understand a little bit about the process of it, like outcome, inputs, or how to M&E link to who, to where, or to forward, do forward. Yeah. And I also like clearly understanding a little bit about the guideline also M&E developed it, but it still has problem with me to do it. I spend a long time to make it, and I always try to connect with the Kelly through online to make to ask her to help me in the project M&E development. Yes, and this we are talking about writing report in M&E. I don't know how to write it, and even though Kelly tried to understand, but we just try to do it, but it's not well. We just learn step by step from her. But by honestly, I have supported a lot from her when I was in Caring for Cambodia about how to develop, how to get the information to put in the M&E template to feed with the like outcome, impact, inputs, and goal or objective, something like that. Yes, and the solution, I will try to understand more about it, and I still contact with Kelly about M&Es and how to do be well, or how to write the report to be, at least I can see about her model, or is have a chance I can learn from her in this training to try to see understanding, because right now I moved to work with a VSO organization, and I need to learn a lot about the project development and M&E, something like that. So I still like also all those how can I say that the material to measure about the project, how to be better. Yes, especially like M&E or something like that. I just know the word, but I don't know how to do it. Yes, but I still contact with her to be in the neighbor and try to learn from her experience or her good expert, because as I know, Kelly, he is the expertise of M&E to develop or to help the other partner or other the NGO to improve the project development to be well. Thank you so much in this slides.
So yeah, well, so we're about to wrap up. We have a couple more slides. I'll be kind of brief about this because Salav and I will go in a little bit more detail. But I mean, what Channa was just speaking about was the lack of capacity on all of our sides. And that a real challenge was that being able to have these long-term relationships so that you can really internalize the information, really internalize and learn how to do things like monitoring, evaluation, or these research projects. And so what we found in our own conversations with each other was that we really weren't reflecting enough. And we really needed a lot more time, a lot more reflection, and that it was quality over quantity when we were talking about what could have been done better in practice, that it really needed to be more in depth and more reflection. And so Salav talked a little bit about the misunderstanding of cultural practices And so we had a lot of those miscommunications, and a lot of, I had to figure out how Cambodians communicated as well. And we kind of get into a space where like we can all be, I hope, open and talk about it. But we talked a little bit too about creating participatory operating norms and community guidelines that might help guide those cultural practices, the misunderstandings. And then another challenge was, do we know if our research is impactful? One of the problems is that as consultants, as researchers, we go in, we do a project, and then we hope it worked, right? And so when we talked, we'll talk a little more about this, but really, again, it's the idea of time, because everything is so rushed, everything is get it done, get it done, get it done, that we really need the time to build organizational relationships. And so that it's not just go in and do something and then leave, which I think we all know, but also to be able to really strengthen the relationship. So next slide, Salav will talk a little bit about this.
Okay, thank you. Since we kind of run out of time, I'll try to be as fast as, but I'm Cambodian, so I'm a bit slower. Okay, so this is actually the core part of the presentation, where we really want to share you our insights and our research perspectives toward a better research in the future. So this is what we would do differently. So first of all is mutual capacity building. As we reflected, all of us, Kelly, Channa, and myself, didn't really know what we were doing, and we lack a lot of skills and understandings along the process. As Kelly mentioned, that even she was the grad student, she didn't really know what she was doing. So we thought that to make sure that everyone is on the same page and really understand the process and what we are researching on, we think that having a reflection is the key. So what it means by reflection is that we want to create a template on how we will reflect. We need to make sure, like, create a concrete success criteria on what we are reflecting on, and plans ahead, as well as the reflecting process. And we suggest setting a reflection time or meeting regularly, as well as train all the people who are involved in the research how to do reflection. Because I know, like, my experience, and I know that it's really common in Cambodia, is that we are not taught to do reflection. But reflection is the key. When we reflect, we can learn from our mistakes. So as research, it's really unpredictable. It's really something can go wrong at any time. So we really need to learn how to do reflections. And the second thing that we think might be effective as well is creating the participatory operating norms. As we struggle with cultural confusion, cultural barriers and conflicts, and miscommunication. So it's really important to have something in common, which is the norms that we create, and that shared community guidelines, where both, let's say, if you're working with the local people, so both local people or local researchers and the international researchers understand the expectations and what they're supposed to do. And by creating an operating norm, we believe that it reinforces the professional expectations as well as behaviors. So this kind of tie back into, no matter who you are, whether you are American or whether you are Cambodian, we have these norms that everybody has to respect and everybody has to follow, so that we have something in common and it can help us process better and more effectively. And Kelly gonna wrap up for the last point.
Thank you, Salav. So yeah, then the organization relationships. So this has to do with knowing impact of the research, and our experience was that there was not as much give and take. And this isn't just with Caring for Cambodia, this is my experience generally in other organizations as well, in that we could create a stronger back and forth about the impact, so that it's not just like, oh, go do this research and then I don't know what happens with it, but that there's a communication cycle to build the relationship with the organization and the institution. And so my experience has been that as a consultant, as an independent researcher, that it's very kind of, that organizational relationship isn't strong. And so we thought also research criteria and agreements between the organization and the consultants, researcher, students, whoever's coming, could be really hashed out and organized, and then built-in feedback mechanisms across the process with the organization to understand, is it being internalized? Like, is the process being internalized? Do the people who are giving the surveys really know what the project is about? Are they committed to it? Do they understand what they're doing, and how we could get feedback about that and ultimately the impacts? So yeah, next slide, please. That's it. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your attention. And we want to thank our colleague in Phnom Penh who provided so much wonderful input. And we have lots more to say on this subject, lots more. We couldn't condense it into an hour. And so we're going to be writing and hopefully publishing about this as well. So we invite questions, conversation. Would love to hear more from you. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much. I think everyone is applauding with their microphones and videos off, but what an amazing contribution to the field that you are all making in this particular set of research arenas, but also in the collaborative work that is so important to all the work that we do. We are almost done with our official time, so perhaps we could stop the recording here. And then we have some time for those who would like to stay online, who would like to have informal conversation with our speakers or to talk about this collaborative research in a more general way. Thank you.